Hi, I'm Bruce Wheelton, and I have a background in social work. I got my master's in social work, worked as a counselor slash therapist beginning after getting my degree in 1996. I went into social work because I really wanted to make the world a better place, and I wanted to realize the values that I have and the way they impact on what I would like to see in terms of society in our country and in the world in the way we think about and treat each other. To be honest, this came to be very consistent with being raised a Christian. And so a lot of current events are confusing to me in this regard as they exist within the United States. I've been interested recently in something called compassion focused therapy. And one of the things that drew me to that in particular is when I started reading about the ideas that the author presented in The Compassionate Mind, which gives an introduction from the author as to why he developed that theory and an introduction to that theory and therapy approach. But he brings a lot of important things to question about U.S. society, what we've chosen to believe is right. And I'd like to present some other ideas about that. And they might be almost sacrilegious. So we need to define some terms before we get into these ideas and people don't use the wrong terms in either criticizing my ideas or misunderstanding what I'm presenting. And that's important because in terms of the dialogues that we have in society, there's a lot of um, division between different points of view. And that's very unfortunate because in my field and in the way I live and have to live is that you can't choose who you're going to hang out with, what kind of values they're going to have, what kind of politics they're going to believe in, whether they're conservative or liberal or whatever. You just can't do that. You don't get to choose who you work with. So the idea is to actually reach out to people who think very differently than me. Now, being a social worker, I'm sure you can guess that I'm very liberal, very progressive. I don't like the word the left because basically it comes from people who are conservative or Republican, and it's almost pejorative. And it comes from people speaking in a very angry way about the left, almost like we're out to get people who don't think in the same exact way. And that's the furthest from the truth, at least from my point of view. I mean, if you look at me and how I live my life, I'm an honorable person. I respect all people. I don't harm others. So when you see certain ideas in the news about the left and how dangerous they are, it's just like I could be someone in government. I don't choose to do that because I choose to work with people, but I could do that. I've been to protests. I've petitioned my leaders, and I've never either condoned or participated in anything aggressive or violent or dangerous to anyone. It's just not the way I think. And also, I've never even seen anyone doing something wrong and did nothing about it. I mean, we didn't cheer people doing something wrong. And so when you use that type of term like the left, the radical left, and do you really differentiate like a passionate liberal who has values from this entity known as the left that you're so angry at? I mean, I don't know. But you're definitely not listening to people who are liberals, I don't think, because that's just, many people don't do that. And you might listen to predominantly one particular station where you get your news. Now, you can get it through smart news, which gives you news from different perspectives. But I don't know how many people are doing that, because the perspectives that a wide range of people have are very, very different. And they're very from one another. My perspective is very different from people who have either a strongly politicized left or right view, or liberal or conservative view, or Republican or Democratic view. Um, it's just not the way I think, in terms of like, one is like the enemy is the right. I just not, you won't hear me talking about the right or the radical right. I'll be talking about individual people. That being said, let's now go back to some terms. The perfect government is something to be strived for. So it doesn't mean that we've got the answers already. But nothing created by a human being is perfect. And so the ideas about how our society is structured are always and should always be open to revision. You might have heard something about economic theory, and that the value of economists who have tried to work within the capitalist system and their ideas, and like to the exclusion of all other ideas, as if this one has to be implemented exactly without any deviation at all. And any deviation from the ideas of like traditional conservative ideas of the invisible hand of the free market and how it's going to control things and make things perfect is just not really a good way to or comprehensive way to think about how we might want to run a society, is to take one idea and think that that's perfect. Gosh, we just got that perfect idea. And it is capitalism, and it's about competition. And we definitely don't want, within that system, it discourages compassion, cooperation, and some of the ideas from. What's interesting is that these ideas come from Christianity, and by and large, America has been a Christian nation. Even if there is some degree of separation of church and state, but that was originally to allow people to be any one of different range of different Christian faiths, Catholic or Protestant or Methodist or Baptist or Lutheran, Calvinist. There's so many out there, and they wanted to be able to worship any faith, according to any faith that they have, or any religion that they have. But overall, it's been Christian, based on the story of Jesus. Now, there is a way to think about Jesus that is worthy of consideration, at least in part. So just bear with me. I remember in the movie Philadelphia, when the lawyer says, "Explain to me as if I was a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old." So there's something to that. I mean, growing up, you're introduced to the ideas in the Bible about Jesus and what he taught and did, and then it's striking the kind of community that was created based on those teachings. I mean, after the Gospels, which is the story of Jesus, we get right to the Acts of the Apostles. And that is a socialist society where everyone contributes what they have and makes sure that everyone is taken care of. Now, you might say, well, gee, that might not work in a big society, and you've got all these problems. But what's actually happened is that we've gone way away from saying, how can that work today? Is there anything to take away from that message, to saying it's actually anything of that nature is actually evil. And that just makes no sense. You cannot juxtapose those ideas and come out with a coherent or logical way of thinking about things if you are a Christian. I mean, you can't call anything that you choose to label socialist as bad. I mean, you just can't. It's just not if you actually studied the ideas of Jesus and the apostles. I mean, the very first book after the Gospels is Acts of the Apostles. I mean, where did they get that idea? I mean, it can't be bad to say, we have to take care of everyone in the community. We have to make sure that, we have to cooperate. We have to share resources. We have to make sure that everyone gets everything they need, survives and is fed, and whatever resources exist, we have to make sure that everyone has access to them. And that's what I believe in. I mean, I strongly believe in compassion, cooperation, relationships, community. And if that's offensive, then I don't, it can't be really. I mean, it can't be, because that's not the way I'm intending to present these ideas. Or you're not really listening to what I'm saying. I mean, these are values that I'm, in this particular video, I'm just like taking and saying, okay, this came from when I was a child, the very first ideas. I started asking myself, this society that we live in, why doesn't it match up with what I'm reading in the Bible? It just doesn't, I couldn't square those ideas. I could not make sense of what I was seeing. I mean, these ideas in society are all about getting whatever you can, as much as you can, competing at the expense of cooperating or compassion. I mean, it's almost like, if we ever show compassion, oh, you're a sucker and you just don't know how this person really didn't plan ahead or something like that. But that assumption is very problematic. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But I wanted to at least say that it's coming from a life of helping other people and being dedicated and devoted to the welfare of human beings and human lives throughout my life, and what I've dedicated myself to. And that can't be offensive, because it includes your life. Whether you agree with my point of view or not, I still care about your well-being and your welfare. And that's what I'm trying to introduce and bring to the table here, to the discussion, and not let's get in a fight about why your ideas are bad and evil and dangerous to me. They're not bad and evil, they're just different. And I just want to engage in a dialogue, and to not be seen as something dangerous and radical, like, oh my God, I can't believe you mentioned socialism. See, one thing that people get wrong is they equate that with communism and authoritarian communism, and say it didn't work in the Soviet Union and it collapsed. Okay, but it could have been other factors in there. That doesn't mean everything that you choose to label socialism is bad. I mean, that doesn't mean that caring about your neighbor, caring about the welfare of every American is a bad thing. Valuing human life, helping people, doing those things are obviously not bad things. They're just not. I mean, they're the core values that I embrace strongly. And I think in some ways, so do most people. Most everyone, I'm pretty sure, does share these values. So thank you for now, and I will pick this up later. Thank you.